Alright guys, I need a favor. Come to you to ask a favor. Normally I don't do things like this, but in light of today's events this morning, I kind of feel it pertinent that I share something with you, and also I ask a favor. So what that favor is, I'll ask it at the end after I'm done saying what I need to say. But first thing first, today's my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. And I hope you don't mind me saying this, but today she turned 73. 73. So we love you and we hope you had a great day. And interesting enough, this morning I met a gentleman today who was also 73. So over the last few weeks, we've been looking for someone to come out to our house and do some work on the rear of our house. We have a all brick house right now, and we need some work done on the rear. So I've been looking for a brick mason to come out and give us an estimate and let us know if they can do it. So I probably reached out to about 4 or 5 individuals, and wasn't having much luck, which is kind of happens a lot. But anyway, so I reached out to about 4 or 5 people to see if they could come out. The first guy came out. He looked at it and he wanted to charge like $1,600 to do this work. It's a small job, and I was thinking, nah, that's too much. It's too much for what the job requires. So made a couple phone calls, left one voice message. I left an email with another person. Didn't really hear back from anyone. So yesterday, I did get a call from a new person that I tried, and he came out and took a look. He took a look at it, and he said that he'd get back to me. Well, later that evening, yesterday, a gentleman called me back late, and he asked me. He said, "Hi, sir. I'm so sorry I missed your call, but I wanted to know if anyone had to come out to take a look at your house." And I said, "Well, actually, someone just came out today. I'm waiting to hear back from him. He hasn't given me an estimate yet." He said, "Well, did he say he was going to do the job?" And I said, "Well, actually, no, he didn't say he'd do it. He just said he'd let me know what the estimate was." So he said, "Well, I'd like to come out tomorrow if I can to take a look at it myself." And I said, "Sure, absolutely. I'll be home tomorrow." So this morning, the gentleman comes out, and he comes out and takes a look at it, and he said, "Okay, I can do this. This is not that big of a deal, and it's not going to cost you that much either." And I said, "Okay, great. That's kind of what we had in mind for what the work required." So we get to talking, and he starts, moving back to his vehicle, and he's asking me some, questions about myself, and I'm asking him a couple questions about himself. And he gets in his car, and then he sits in his vehicle, and he said, "I worked really, really hard. I worked hard in my life." He said, "And I've been pretty healthy. I got a bad knee, but I'm still going." I said, I told him, I said, "You look like you're healthy. You look like you're doing good. I think you're gonna be around for a little while longer." And he kind of laughed, and he said, "Well, we don't know about that, but." And I said, "Oh no, I said I could tell." I said, "I hope so. I pray for that." And then he asked me about my family, and we started talking a little bit, and he asked me how old I was, and I told him how old I was. And then he said, "Yeah, I remember." He said, he kind of stares off a little bit, and he said, there was a time that I had it all." And I started listening, I quiet down, and I started paying attention at this point. And he said, "I worked hard. I worked real hard." He said, "I had a wife and I have 2 boys." And he told me that him and his wife, they got a divorce, and she moved to California. She with the boys. And then he told me, he said, I had a house like you. It was all brick. It was on 3 acres. I had it good, but he had to make some changes. He said. And then I just listened to him. And then he asked me if I had any kids, and I said, yes, sir. I have 3 kids. I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. And he asked me if I was married, and I said, yes, I am. He nodded his head, and he said, yeah. He said, that's good. That's real good. And he said, I work real hard. And I hope that, shows itself in the end. I said, oh, it will, sir. I said, I can see it on you. I said, that's all we can do. All we can do is put in that work. He looked at me, and then he kind of turned to look at me. He said, I have 2 boys, and they're about your age. They don't really talk to me that much. He said, I get a text every now and then, but they don't really talk to me much. And I listened. And he said, but he threw his hands up, and he said, none of that matters. I worked hard in my life, and all I care about right now is Christ. He said, I'm all in. He said, I'm all in now. And that's when I knew. I knew at that moment that I had something that I was going to need to say. I told him there's some kind of message that I needed to give, or he was going to give me. It was going to be one or the other. So I started listening. I said, okay. And then he starts to tell me that, he said, all I pray for at this point is that my boys, for my boys to know me and they love me and that they know Christ. And I said, oh, no, sir. I said, no, sir. I said, as long as Yeshua flows in you, he's going to flow down to those boys. I said, don't you worry. I said, matter of fact, and when I said this, he grabbed his heart. And then he started to tear up a little bit. And he said, oh, I hope so. Oh, I really hope so. I said, oh, no, sir. I said, we gonna make this happen for you. I said, I'm gonna do what I can. I said, tonight, I'm gonna put in some prayers for you tonight, sir. Then he said, bless you. He said, God bless you. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, he gave me his boy's name, Tyler and Zachary. And I said, okay, sir, we're gonna make this happen. I said, don't you worry. Don't you worry about that. And then he thanked me, and he started to drive away, and I navigated on my driveway. And he stopped and he rolled down the window, and he said, he looked at me and he said, God sent me here to you today just for you to tell me that. And I looked at him and I said, I know he did, sir. I said, don't worry. I told him not to worry, that we were going to be all right. And he left, and I went on about my day, of course. But I stopped, I was thinking, wow, man, I thought, how amazing. And I thought about how this thing works, how the Most High uses people. He uses people to navigate this stuff. And I thought about each one of those individuals that I contacted, and I thought about his hand saying, no, not you. I don't want you to return his phone call. You don't even bother sending him a reply email. You, sir, yeah, you can go ahead and come out, but I don't want you to give him a fair estimate. And he said, but you, sir, I want you to return his phone call because he has something that you need to hear. And that's the feeling that I got. The moment that he told me that he was all in, and he was all in now, I knew I had to pay attention. I had to pay close attention. We get so caught up sometimes looking through our eyes. And we have to, we have to remember that in this fleshly world, we have to remember how all this works. We understand how light works. You think about the narrow wavelength that the visible light spectrum that we have, that we can see through. You think about how that works. You have to remember that when that light comes through, when it comes through our eyes, it comes through our cornea. Remember that information, that image is reversed. It's flipped upside down. Everything is upside down. It isn't until that information hits our retina and our brain processes the information, in which is flipped back upright. I think about that kind of stuff all the time when I walk. We have to speak life. Let's speak life into people that we come into contact with. We never know when you're going to be called to help someone who's in need. Had I been someone that would have just paid attention to what this guy looked like, or if I paid attention to what he told me, which part of the county he was from, if that mattered to me, would any of that have happened? Or vice versa. If he had looked at me and said, no, I'm not going to even bother with this guy. I'm not going to even talk to him. I'm not going to give him a time of day. If he had done that, would he have felt comfortable doing anything or sharing a piece of himself that he did? But no, I saw his heart and he saw mine. And that's how this stuff works. You have to speak life. You never know who you're going to come in contact with. So my favor is that, I'm fully confident that, I can do what I can, to help, this man who's deserving of this. That we pray and we can, help this situation where, at his age, where he's at, that all he wants is his two boys to know him and communicate with him. He needs that. So if you all wouldn't mind, sharing in that prayer for me, I'd appreciate that, because I think this man is deserving of that. I think he's deserving of that. So if you got this far, I appreciate your time, and God bless us.